Ari, I always know we have a big time guest if they appear in front of a makeup mirror because it means they're about to go on television. The great Paul Finebaum, the king. We had our friend Doug Maurice on last week, and he has a podcast called Kings of the North, and I think he might have stolen your shtick. But what does that make you? The Emperor of the South, the Grand Poobah of the South?
Not to wax poetic, but somebody, I think it was Greenberg or Stephen A. Smith, who started introducing me as the mouth of the South, which I've been around long enough to know that was a wrestler, Jimmy Hart. It was also Ted Turner. Emperor sounds good. Doug's entitled to whatever he wants. I mean, he's trying to make a name for himself after all those years as a newspaper scribe.
Yeah, I mean, that never works, going from newspaper writer to person who yells about things on the radio and TV.
When a journalist leaves his craft to go and actually try to make enough money to so his kids can go to soccer practice once or twice.
Paul, so we were talking this morning on our show about a scenario that could arise, okay? And Andy doesn't think it's a likely scenario, but I think it might be. If we get to the end of the year and Alabama wins the rest of their games, beats LSU on the road, and finishes 10-2, and Indiana is 11-1, having beaten every opponent on their schedule by 14 or more points, but without a trademark quality win, what do you think the committee would do if it came down to those two teams, and what do you think would be the just call there?
Yeah, I think the just call is Alabama, and it has everything to do with what they've accomplished. They have a Georgia win, which we all know. The win at Wisconsin is okay, not bad, but it's better than a lot of schools' non-conference games. And a win at LSU also matters to me. So I just look at what Indiana has done, and we can all sing Kumbaya about FIU and Western Illinois and going all the way and winning at UCLA and Charlotte. Come on! But what is impressive other than maybe that Nebraska win, just the way it was done? I don't think, frankly, it would be a close call. It's a good question. I understand where you're coming from, Ari, but no way that I would put Indiana in over Alabama.
This Biff Poggi slander will not stand. I'm just going to say that right now. Put that on the record.
Andy, did you hear what Paul said? Can I throw it through the translator there for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Vanderbilt game didn't matter.
Oh, how dare you?
You can say that, but I would give you all the other reasons just to make sure that my next trip to Alabama is pleasant.
Well, listen, the atmosphere in the state of Alabama may not be pleasant for a couple of reasons, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about, Paul, because I get the sense that there's some SEC fan bases that are about to be awakened to a very harsh reality, because there's so many that went into the season assuming that their team was going to make the playoff. Well, you've got Alabama, LSU next week, where the loser's probably not making the playoff. You've got Ole Miss is in win or die mode right now. Missouri's in win or die mode right now. What is the world going to be like when some of these teams find out it ain't happening for us?
Yeah, I'll take the Alabama LSU game first. The loser of that game is really in trouble. I'll give you some of the scenarios. If LSU wins, all of a sudden some of the scuttlebutt about Brian Kelly will come to a crashing halt. And what you then hear, Andy, is he has now won 2 of his first 3 against Alabama. That's why we hired him. Conversely, the loss would be fairly devastating, I think. I respect him a lot, but you know what the noise is about some of these big games. As far as DeBoer, I really believe the season was about getting to the playoff. I said this with DeBoer watching a couple of months ago in Dallas, that I felt like it would be a bust if he didn't make it. And I still feel that way when you consider the enormous talent that he mostly inherited. A few got away, but most, including the quarterback, was still there. I think the Ole Miss situation is also interesting, guys, because we all know what how good this Ole Miss team was coming in, and you know, at Arkansas in a couple of days, the Georgia game. I mean, they've got some opportunities here for ending the season, and that would be in many ways even a bigger story because this is easily the best Ole Miss team since the '60s, and without a playoff berth to show for it, I think that is a black mark on Lane Kiffin's resume. And I realize we're going 1 week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, but I'm just giving you an opinion based on them not.
They could lose to Arkansas, Paul. I mean, that's in the realm of possibility. We saw Arkansas beat Tennessee.
I think that is a possibility, and that would make it even more complex. I wasn't sure if this was being recorded and played in 4 weeks from now, so I was careful what to say about that game. But I do. I mean that's a game changer for two coaches. I mean Sam Pittman, they let him know he's back next year on the spot, and Lane Kiffin can call Jimmy Sexton, assuming he's not at the game, and say, Jimmy, get me out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I know some real estate agents in Gainesville that would probably call immediately.
Yeah, they would be looking in your neighborhood, right? Paul, I have a question for you. So as the mouth of the South or the emperor of the South, I wanted to ask you, when you look at the SEC from top to bottom this year, with Texas and Oklahoma now in the mix, I find it interesting that it looks like this conference is probably going to go without a Heisman Trophy finalist for the first time since 2017. Outside of Georgia, there's some questions about whether or not there are teams that are capable of winning the national championship, though I do think that A&M and Tennessee are teams that could turn it on and make a run. What is your take on the SEC from top to bottom in terms of how deep it is? And do you question whether it's the best conference in college football this year for the first time in a while?
I don't question it yet, but I think it's a fair question, Ari. And listen, we've had a lot of conversations, and I'm not coming in here just to beat the drums. I mean, there's been some moments this year in the SEC where, if I could say this very quietly, there's been some literally unwatchable programs, more than a couple. So I'm going to wait just for my insanity to see how the play. I think the playoff is going to indicate it. But yeah, I mean, there's if you work for a TV network, which I do, you've got to, and you see a game with a couple of SEC schools, the level of interest goes down dramatically, and there's no getting around that. There's some bad teams. So I know I've obfuscated your very pertinent and to the point question, but I will defer until I see who's in the playoffs.
And they're great headphones. JLab is gearing up for college football with some of the top talent in the game. From Travis Hunter, Colorado, to Ohio State's Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins, these football stars embody JLab's core values of innovation, performance, and excellence. Just as JLab pushes the boundaries of audio tech, these athletes redefine their sport with skill and dedication. Whether you're traveling to watch your favorite team or stream the game on your mobile device, JLab has you covered. You want to go over the ear, you want to go inside the ear, you want to go in the ear with the loop over to work out, they got it all. Find the blue box at retailers near you or visit jlab.com. Well, there is an SEC team that's had a pretty bad year that I still find very interesting, and it's especially because of the opponent this week. Paul, Auburn finally broke through. They got an SEC win at Kentucky. But now Diego Pavia is coming back to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Diego Pavia led New Mexico State into Jordan-Hare and won 31-10 last year. Now he brings this Vandy team that has beaten Alabama, that was had an onside kick at the end of the game against Texas to stay in it. What happens if he goes in there and beats Auburn again?
Well, the good news is that at least Hugh Freeze will prepare for Diego Pavia this time around, which he clearly didn't a year ago. And I want to give Hugh Freeze credit for saving the season with that win over Kentucky, but it seemed rather lame considering how bad Kentucky is. But I think it was enough to quiet everyone down, Andy. A week ago, this conference was buzzing about Hugh Freeze's future. I think the folks in Auburn are content to let it play out. They still believe in him, even though I've seen very little from him from a head coaching standpoint this year that impresses me, or really over the last 2 years. But I think a loss would be pretty punishing, though. The only thing that you could say is that Vandy is a lot better than they used to be. But ultimately, if he lost this game, he still has what, A&M and Alabama. So do the math. I mean, that's easily what I would call a disastrous season. ULM is actually competitive too.
Yeah, they're good.
If he lost out, I imagine the Jimmy Rain box during the Iron Bowl would be a place to watch.
That's the yellow one, right? They
That's
just drape it in yellow.
box, yeah. But I was there about 5 weeks ago, and I didn't get any sense, as bad as the season was even going then, that there was a lot of conversation about his future, because you know how Auburn is, Andy. They don't want the reality that Brian Harsin actually had a better record at this point when he got fired a year ago than Hugh Freeze.
Paul, how surprised are you? And I just want to attack this head on, that Alabama has not only lost twice, but just does not look like we thought they were going to look so far this year.
I'm pretty surprised because the DeBoer transition was seamless outside of the first day or two when he lost a couple of players. And he just hasn't. He's a good coach, but I don't think he's commanded the stage very well. There are a lot of I've been to Alabama twice in about 2 weeks now, and there's a level of impatience with him, and some of it's natural. It's post Saban, but his demeanor on the sidelines bugs people. His lack of discipline. Some of the things that he says and does, his coaching staff has not worn well. But having said all that, it's really going to come down to next week. And I'm not trying to say, well, this would be a better question in 2 weeks. But should he lose to LSU, everything is that game will determine what we say about him in the offseason. I think I am not that impressed so far. How about that?
Let's switch gears to another first-year coach, though, who has been fairly impressive. When did you feel like Mike Elko was firmly in control at Texas A&M? Could you see it preseason, or did it take a little bit of watching him coach this team?
I heard some things preseason. We had Brent Zorneman on before the season, and I said, "So what's the range, Brent?" He covers the team, I believe, for the Houston paper,
Houston Chronicle. Yep.
Yeah, he said somewhere between 8-4 and 10-2, and I actually said, "Are you out of your mind? 10-2, what?" But he wasn't just saying that to be a homer. He's not. So I started thinking about it at that point in time. I was out there for the Missouri game, and that was really the moment. Right before the game, Elko came on our show and said that he was going with Connor Wegman, and it was a really daring decision at that moment because Reed had played so well. And then he did it again. But the real moment I knew he had arrived is when, in the aftermath of the LSU game, when he walked into the media room and after being asked about culture, he completely eviscerated Jimbo Fisher. Now, I realize he walked it back, which I'm sure some PR guy said it was a good thing always to go on the record and say you didn't mean what you said. Of course he meant what he said. And he endeared himself to every person that follows A&M by trashing Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, that was a powerful statement. Paul, I'm going to switch conferences. Andy and Doug got into a little debate about whether or not Provo, Utah is in the northern or southern part of the country last week.
I just trying to grab BYU for the South.
I'm trying to pump up our boy Jake Retzlaff here, and I'm just wondering, like, what's your take on BYU and the guy who's slinging it for our people?
Yeah, no, I think they're a fascinating story. I've seen them a little bit, but listen, I don't. I mean, they look like they have a really clean path ahead. So I don't know whether that is in north or south. It seems north to me, even though I believe it's is it below the Mason-Dixon line if you stretch it all the way out from Kentucky to
I know
Utah?
Boulder is below it. I think Provo would be below it too. I do not know the exact lines of latitude, unfortunately, Paul. But I am curious. Was BYU in your finalists when you were deciding where to go to school? Tennessee and BYU, were those your two?
No. By the way, will we send somebody out, call somebody out there in Provo and ask them how they pronounce the name Paul? And I think then we'll know whether it's north or south.
Ooh, Paul.
If they
Paul
pronounce
Baldwin,
it like
yeah.
a Finebaum caller, then it's south. If it's pronounced normal, then it's north.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So all we use call, we say, excuse me, do you serve caffeinated Coca-Cola? Also, I'm going to spell a word for you, Paul. And if they say Paul, then the South gets them.
By the way, Ari, there's nobody in our industry that does the Paul imitation better than your partner here.
Do it again.
It's in the genes. Paul. Half my family's from Selma, Alabama. Like, there's probably somebody in my family, Paul, probably wrote a letter to you when you were a newspaper columnist, probably threatening your life. So,
I did not. By the way, I once went to Selma, Alabama to speak. And by the way, the lights are coming on here. I think it's Halloween preparation. But the mayor actually had me handcuffed and arrested. The same mayor who was beating people over the head on the Edmund Pettus Bridge back in the 60s.
Well, Paul, the thing that you need to learn about Andy is that the way he pronounces Paul isn't the impression. The normal talking on the show is the impression.
That is my natural accent is something closer to your callers.
As a legitimate print reporter. By the way, you as well.
Yeah, I guess that time comes to an end for all of us. I don't know.
What you guys were two of my favorite writers in the industry. I mean, I'm not trying to upstage this show or to filibuster, but my college football reading has not been the same since both of you went over to the whatever the in front of the camera side.
Hey, we're still writing, Paul. We're still writing, Paul. Now.
Yeah,
it's not over yet. Now it's a little bit. We got to pick and choose our spots.
Yeah, because I'm talking about the good old days, Andy, not the. I might bat something out once or twice a month here.
Well, the thing is, you turn the camera on and it just spits dollar bills at you, and it's really hard to say no.
Well, I've had the opportunity to spend time with the owner of the company you work for, so I get it. It was a smart business decision.
Yeah, the players aren't the only ones making those.
That's right, Paul. Thank you so much, and have a happy Halloween.
I will, guys. Thanks for remembering me here in my final days as a talk show host. So be well.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be on your show this afternoon, Paul. So I'll see you. I'll see you this afternoon.
Paul Finebaum, your choice.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.